Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Lucas Frankel and Mike Lucas here with you. And we begin with just devastating news from the National Basketball Association. We figured this was coming down last night. Klay Thompson done for the year with a torn Achilles. And Mike, just feels like the Warriors are cursed. They moved to San Francisco and everything with that franchise just falls off a cliff.
I mean, it sucks. And devastating, I think, is the right word. Klay is, if not one of the most liked players in the league, not only by fans of other teams, but by NBA players who aren't his teammates. The dude can seemingly do no wrong. And I don't know if there's exact phrasing to put this, but it just sucks for a dude who injured himself, went through the entire rehab process, did everything right, according to reports, was on track to play this season at full strength. And then it's a freak injury that takes him out, and the Achilles is not an easy one to recover from. Knock on wood that Kevin Durant can make a full recovery from his Achilles injuries. But I don't know. I'm not blaming the Golden State training staff. I don't think there's anything to do with them. But they have had two major Achilles injuries to two of the 10, 15 biggest stars in the league in the last 16 months. So something's either unlucky. I'm not saying fishy. I'm not accusing them whatsoever. But that's just a stretch of brutal luck. And, yeah, it sucks because I think the Warriors had a chance to be really, really good again this season after their down season last year without Klay and Steph. So just a bummer because I love watching Klay play.
Speaking of, I do have a major conspiracy we'll get to later, but I don't think there's anything fishy here. This is just bad luck.
I've
always been very fascinated with curses, and there is a part of me that maybe this is karma for. I mean, not really, but like karma for chasing the Silicon Valley money. Like you had a great thing in Oakland. Such a loyal, diehard fan base, went through all those years of suffering and losing, showed out to every game, packed that arena, and then you leave them to go to, the
Costa Bay,
the luscious, San Francisco arena, and your whole franchise just falls off a cliff. But terrible news.
I do think you're onto something with the curse, Frank. It sucks that Klay Thompson's the guy who is the on the wrong end of the curse because he has nothing to do with the franchise moving. It would have been more appropriate if the owner, fell down the stairs and broke his leg or something. That I'd be like, oh, definitely cursed. But it sucks for Klay to be in this situation.
Do the Warriors make the playoffs? Yes or no?
Yes. Yeah. Healthy Steph's a top 6-7 player, and they got enough pieces around him to make it playoff. But they can't win a playoff series.
I actually wanted to bet on them to win the title this year because I thought.
Me too, Frank. I would have got in on that bet with you.
There was a ton of value there because
like 14-1.
Huh? 13-1, yeah, plus 1300
yeah.
was. So there was a ton of value, and when Steph, Klay, and Draymond are healthy, and you had Wiseman, who I think at least they were going to at least try to flip. I don't know what their plans are for him now. I'd love to see them go after Giannis and get him the hell out of Milwaukee. We'll go there next. I don't know what the hell the Bucks are doing. I mean, 3 first-round picks and 2 big swaps for Jrue Holiday, a career 15.6 point per game scorer. What am I missing here? Jrue Holiday is going to lead the Bucks to a championship? How delusional is that organization?
I don't know if it's delusion or more just grasping at straws because they need to do everything in their power to keep Giannis in Milwaukee, and by maybe assembling their version of a super team around him, that's their best bet. But what I don't get, Frank, and I had this same thought. Simmons and Russillo talked about it on their podcast on Thursday. But if Giannis is going to stay, he has to tell the front office so the front office can make deals that not only help them in the short-term future, but doesn't mortgage their entire future. Because if Holiday doesn't work out or he leaves after a year, which his contract is only up for a year and there's a player option, you just mortgage your entire future for one season. And if Giannis stays, it handcuffs the Milwaukee organization to try and make moves that improve the roster down the line when Giannis is still 27, 28, which is really what his prime should be. The fact that he's won 2 MVPs before he's even really peaked is absurd. And that means in 2024, 2025, 2026, they don't have that first-round pick to swap for a guy at the deadline, or they don't have those young assets to mortgage to bring in another star when Jrue Holiday's on his way out. Bogdanovich, who knows if he's going to end up in Milwaukee? It sounds like that's not the case anymore, which I think is a major blow because I thought he was a great fit in what Coach Bud wants to do in that system. He can create his own shot, great stand in the corner, 3-point shooter, which we know Milwaukee exceeds at. But yeah, it feels like Milwaukee gave up a king's ransom for a guy who is a very good defensive player, is definitely an upgrade over Eric Bledsoe, but he's not a top 20 guy in the league. And they gave up the pick value of a guy who you look at as a top 10 guy. So yeah, I think it's a major swing and miss.
They made the same trade the Nets made for Pierce, Garnett, Jason Terry, and whoever. That was basically the same trade. And the Bucks would have been better off getting Chris Paul. I mean, I'd take Chris Paul over Jrue Holiday any day of the week. And
it sounds like you could have got Chris Paul for less too. Phoenix gave up less for Chris Paul than Milwaukee did for Jrue Holiday. And yeah, maybe Paul is a tad bit worse than Holiday at this moment. He's a little older, but it's close enough that 3 picks doesn't make a difference.
Chris Paul set the tone for last year's Thunder team. That team wasn't supposed to do anything, and Chris Paul was the sole reason why they made it as far as they did. And I'm going to go out on a limb now. Giannis will never win a title in Milwaukee. That is never going to happen. And the quicker he realizes that, and the quicker he gets out of there, and maybe forces his way to Golden State, which would be unbelievable for them. I would do that tomorrow, because you need to pair up with Steph now before he's 33 years old. You need to get with him sooner rather than later, so that way that window doesn't close. Giannis needs to get out of Milwaukee, because it's not going to happen for him there.
Golden State or Miami? He'd be perfect in Miami.
I don't know. My one thought about the Heat is last year was Eric Spoelstra's best coaching job ever, and I don't see the Heat making it back. But elsewhere in the Eastern Conference, we'll get to the draft next. Actually, all right, we'll go with the Nets here. There was a lot of buzz, I believe, on Tuesday about James Harden. Our friend Anthony Puccio. I don't know how familiar you are with him. I'm not really that familiar with him. He basically put his reputation on the line and said that there's a verbal agreement for Harden and the Nets. 48 hours have passed since that time. There's really been no traction to it. I texted you when I first saw the initial buzz that Harden had requested a trade to the Nets. I was like, this. I mean, no. At the end of the day, whoever the Nets, as long as Kyrie Irving's on the roster, there's no hope. So I will die on that hill. And James Harden, whoever you want to add to that Knicks, great. It's not going to matter.
I'll start with Puccio. Puccio has been a Nets insider for a while now. I think he actually does a really good job. He was on it when Kyrie signed and Durant signed last year. So this report has not come to fruition yet. Maybe the verbal agreement was in place, but I'm not ready to discredit Puccio on that report, because I think he does do a pretty good job staying in the beat with the Nets. As far as Harden goes, I'm really conflicted, because if you have a chance to get a top 7-8 guy in the league, you do it. And then you figure it out later. And the Nets have a chance to get James Harden, a top 6-7 guy, with Kevin Durant, who went out to the top 2-3 guy, and then Kyrie, hate him or love him, he's a top 15 guy. And that's 3 of the top 15 players in the league. And when you have 3 of the top 15 players in the league, you should be able to just roll the ball out and figure out how to win, because you have more talent than whoever you're playing against. The issue is Kyrie and Harden might be the least compatible superstar duo in the history of the world. And for those two to work together, that means KD would have to take a step back and be the third banana. And KD is the best of the 3. So you can't ask the best player to become the third banana to accommodate 2 lesser players. The only way I make the trade if I'm Brooklyn is if you ship Kyrie Irving out. Kyrie Irving has to be part of the deal that brings James Harden in, because I think Harden and Durant has a significantly higher ceiling than a KD and Kyrie duo. And then you don't have to give as many pieces, but I do not see any way that Irving and Harden can coexist. I cannot fathom a world where those two work together, no matter what they say, no matter how much Harden says, I'll play team basketball, no matter how much Kyrie says, bring the guys in, I'll make it work. I do not see a way that either of those two can survive in the same backcourt. I can't. And it's the worst defensive backcourt in the NBA if that was to happen.
All right. It's an interesting theory, but here's why it will never happen. First of all, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are attached to the hip. They love each other, and Kyrie Irving will never approve a trade to a Rockets team on a bridge to nowhere. So that theory is automatically out the window. So don't get that thought out of your head right now.
Can I pitch you a counter to that, though? What if now, remember, KD and Harden are very good friends from their times in OKC.
Are they, though?
Yes, they according to report. I mean, I'm not texting them, and I'm not in the OKC 2012 NBA Finals group chat. But from all reports, those two are good friends. And what if KD sees the writing on the wall that, hey, I spent a year with Kyrie, and he's not what it's meant up to be, and I have a chance to upgrade, and he's floating it out to say, hey, like, Kyrie, this has been fun, but I got a new hotter commodity on the way. Like, peace.
I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, it means getting rid of Kyrie Irving, do it tomorrow. But this is Kyrie Irving came to the Nets. He set the tone. This is his experiment that's going to end up failing. But it's Kyrie Irving's show, and he's going to stir the drink here for however long this whatever the hell they're trying to do in Brooklyn happens. I mean, they got Landry Shamet last night. I don't really know much about him. I guess he's a good 3-point shooter. We'll see what he adds to the team. But I'm still again, moral of the story on the Nets. No matter what they do, as long as Kyrie Irving's there, not excited.
I want to trade Kyrie for Harden. If we can make that happen, sign me up in a heartbeat.
That is just, there's a 0% chance of that ever happening. Moving on to the NBA draft, held virtually on Wednesday night. My biggest takeaway was when these guys are in in their homes with their families, I've never seen such emotion out of the draft, and almost do that every year from now on. Have Adam Silver in his arena with the fans. But don't bring the players there. Keep them remote. Keep them with virtually. Let me see the dudes crying, because that honestly. I mean, not that I was super into it, but I have one more point after that. So the emotion was great. The second part is, of all the drafts I could ever remember, this is the one I knew the least amount about the players. I don't know if that had to do with the fact that it was the NCAA tournament, but I knew about LaMelo Ball. We saw 3 games from James Wiseman. You just heard so much about him. I honestly didn't really know a ton about. I mean, you hear about Anthony Edwards, but I never saw him play a lot. But beyond those 3 guys, it was almost after that I was like, all right, I'm done with the draft. I just don't know. I don't know who these guys are. Why am I watching this?
Yeah, I didn't know a ton of guys. I knew the SEC guys from A&M, and Edwards in Georgia destroyed the Aggies last year. When they came to College Station, he was held to 7 points on 2 of 13 shooting. So I wasn't sold on him just from what I saw. I love the virtual format, Frank, and even more than the virtual format, because I'm not sure if the emotion we saw came from them being surrounded by more family and friends in an intimate setting than being, in an arena with everyone else and not wanting to, fully let their guard down. But I really liked how ESPN let the players tell their stories and the package they ran after each player was drafted, as opposed to, Reese Davis, who I think did a good job just kind of reading off, hey, this happened in his life. His grandma passed. He plays for that. I like the players having the ability to tell their own story. And I thought, some of them were cheesy. I thought that was pretty cool as well. It added a new element. So you get to know the players a little more through that. The interviews weren't great. You could hear the feedback behind them in a lot of the TVs, and there was a massive delay, and that's just the Zoom technology we deal with in 2020. But overall, I thought it was pretty successful. And I love the fact that there's only 5 minutes on the clock between picks. 15 minutes in the NFL is way too long.
I believe they had all their interviews worked. Did LaMelo Ball ever get interviewed? I know they.
No, that was wild to me. I didn't notice that. They skipped LaMelo and never went back to him. And I know LeVar is not allowed on ESPN anymore, so I'm curious if that was part of the reasoning behind that. But I did notice that.
Props to LeVar. Say what you want about LeVar Ball. He got 2 kids, 2 sons drafted in the top 5 of the NBA draft. That is. You talk about accomplishment as a father. That is Mount Rushmore of accomplishments for a father. That's got to be, if not in number 1, easily in the top 5 of things a father has ever done. It's unbelievable.
It really is. And, you can call LeVar crazy. You could call him, a bad father. You can call him whatever you want. But his method and the madness behind it, it worked. It worked. And to all the LeVar haters out there, not a good day for you. Let's just leave it at that.
I'm on now. Obviously, all the speculation goes to now we get to see LeVar and MJ play one.
I would pay $20 on pay-per-view to watch that. I really would. $20 pay-per-view, I would pay.
LeVar wouldn't score a single basket. MJ, from all accounts, MJ could still I don't know about his acceleration, but I believe he could still shoot and knock it down like the best of them.
LeVar, if they played to 100, MJ would win 100-0.
You don't think? No, come on.
If they play, I don't think. Maybe LeVar throws a shot over his head, it goes in. But you know how we saw in the Last Dance how competitive Michael still is. Michael would want to absolutely crush LeVar Ball, and he would not take it easy. He would give him everything he had. And LeVar, he never could beat Michael at any point in his life. And now, when they're both old, I've seen Michael shoot. He could still make shots. I think LeVar has 0 chance. Maybe 100-1. I maybe give him 1 point.
last point on the draft. Coward made this point on Thursday that it's become basically a developmental draft. It's basically like it's almost getting to the level of the MLB draft where like one or two guys and the rest of the guys are basically a hodgepodge of people that we don't still know a lot about. In your mind, gun to your head, who's the best player that comes out of this class?
I really like a Kongyu who went to Atlanta.
That Bam Adebayo guy?
Yeah. But the only reason I say that is I think at minimum, if he never gets any better, he's already a rotation piece in the league and could be a starter. Because I think he's an elite rebounder, a really good defender. He's athletic, and he catches lobs. So if he never gets better, he could be an NBA player right now. But I think his upside is there. But I don't feel confident in any of these guys. Like I don't.
If you had to set an over/under for All-Star game appearances for LaMelo Ball, what would it be? I guess the two options are either a half or 1.5.
Does fan vote count if he gets voted in by the fans?
No. This is legitimate. Like LaMelo Ball is an All-Star player for however many appearances. Under. I
think he could be successful, but there's so many good guards in the league, and he can't shoot at a level that would lead him to being a high scorer, and he's just not that physical yet where I think he's going to get. I think he could be a successful player. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he has the physical tools. Breaking news from Woj, the Nets are declining Garrett Temple's option for the 2020-2021 season.
Don't do that.
Breaking news on this podcast. There you go. Would you take the over for LaMelo?
No, I'll go. I mean, I would say he makes one. I'll give him one for his career and leave it at that.
Does he have a better career than Lonzo? Hold on. Better career than Lonzo. Yes.
Oh, no. Lonzo's set up here for years to come with him and Zion. They're going to be, remember Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin? That's going to be Lonzo and Zion for the next 5 to 6 years. Just lob after dunk. It's
more than one All-Star appearance for Lonzo.
He'll make an All-Star game or two just because he'll be attached to the hip to Zion and people are they're gonna see those two guys coexist. It's gonna be a show. New Orleans is gonna be a fun team. I'm very excited to watch Zion. Hopefully he stays healthy, God willing, because he hasn't shown he can stay healthy.
Next topic.
For a really long time now. Moving on to Major League Baseball. Really, really fortunate break for the Mets. Robinson Cano test positive for a steroid called, I looked it up to pronounce this right, stanozolol. His second PED suspension in 3 years. He's going to miss the entire season, has to forfeit his entire $24 million salary. And this is just like everything for the Mets is just falling into place. And it's really starting to irk me because they just got this new owner, all their fan bases, they got their chest pumped up. They're so riding high. And now they get Cano's salary off the books for another year. And you know what? Conspiracy Lucas thinks that Steve Cohen may have been like, hey, listen, we'll pay. Hey, take your steroid here, test positive. We'll pay under the table. Will not cost you anything for real, but let's get that money off our books. Do this, and you'll be good. You'll be taken care of. Is that I don't know, a possibility here, or am I crazy?
I love where your conspiracy mind is going. I think it's way off, but I love the fact that you're reaching at straws to try and find something to take down the Mets. I hate the fact that they seem competent now. Like immediately they change owners and all of a sudden things start going their way. That drives me nuts because it shouldn't work like that. They are still an incompetent franchise until proven otherwise. And I don't like the fact that Steve Cohen seems like a likable guy who has the right intentions because the Wilpons clearly didn't. The money, like it is crazy. When you're on a hot streak in betting or in life, when you're on a hot streak, just things just seem to go your way for an extended period of time. The Mets are on a heater right now. The Mets are on an absolute heater. And if what worries me is they're going to put all their money on Black, a.k.a. DJ LeMahieu.
I was going to say, if they get LeMahieu, then I'm going to be so angry because that's my guy. That he's my Yankee. He is my player. Do not touch DJ LeMahieu. He is off limits. If you even try to mess with DJ LeMahieu coming back to the Yankees, this is all-out war. This is a citywide Yankees versus Mets. There's a dividing line between Queens and the Bronx. No one's allowed on either side. This is, I'm putting my fist pumps up, getting my pitchforks ready to roll, baby, because it's going to be a battle.
No, I'm with you, but that's what I'm saying. Everything seems to be going their way. They're walking a little taller. Their swaggers oozing out of their pores, and they think they have a chance at someone like LeMahieu. They're going to put all their money on Black and try to bring in one of the top 2 or 3 free agents in this class. They have the money to now. So that scares me just because when things start going a team's way, it has the chance to escalate an avalanche into something much more dangerous than the threat the Mets pose to the Yankees right now.
Sounds like they're going to end up getting George Springer, maybe even a Marcelo Zuna. But please, for the love of humanity, just stay away from DJ LeMahieu. Mind your own business. Just let me be here, all right? That's all I ask. And let the Yankees sign Trevor Bauer too. Give me Bauer and LeMahieu. You can have everybody. Everyone else in the market's yours. And if you want Robinson Cano for Giancarlo Stanton, then I'll love you even more.
I feel the same way. I want Bauer. I know him and Garrett Cole don't really like each other, but I'm all for it.
I've heard like a lot of players in baseball just don't like Trevor Bauer, but the dude's
well,
still.
Do you know, real quick, you know the backstory of Bauer and Cole, right?
No, I do not.
They were teammates at UCLA, and they both thought they were the ace.
Oh,
and only one could be the ace. So they've had this little internal rivalry for the last, whenever they got drafted. I don't know what year it was, but recent stories. Apparently, there's some funny locker room stories from the UCLA baseball team.
One move I would like to see the Yankees make is orchestrating the trade away Luke Voit and sliding LeMahieu over to first base, put Torres back at second base, and then put maybe sign Didi Gregorius back on or trade for Lindor at shortstop. I'm good without Luke Voit. If they trade him,
sell high. I mean, you could sell high right now. I think if you're ever,
I don't think that Luke Voigt's stock will ever be higher than it is right now. And I know a lot of fans like him, and he's got the shirtless all the time and is jacked. But in terms of him trusting him in a big spot to hit good pitching, I do not trust him. So that would be an area if I were Brian Cashman that I would try to explore if I could. Moving on to the National Football League, and the New York Giants are going to win the NFC East. It's unbelievable. They're 3-7.
I'm all in. I told you.
I
told you on this very podcast. Hey Frank, I am all in. When you have a chance to win the division, you go for it. And I don't care if that means sacrificing a top 10 pick, even though the fact at best you finish the season 8-8, at best, probably 7-9, maybe 6-10, but that's still good enough to win the NFC East at this point. Joe Judge, maybe he fought Mark Colombo. Maybe he didn't fight Mark Colombo. It sounds like he didn't, but I want to believe he did because that would make me like Joe Judge even more than I like Joe Judge at this current moment. I'm keep switching my hands back and forth because that's how I was heading into this week, Frank, about how I felt about this team. But now I'm all the way on this side of the mic. They need to go for the division. This team's so bad that if they can win the division with this roster, the potential of what they can do with a competent roster is limitless. And I told you since the get-go, I like how they play for Joe Judge. I think they're scrappy. I think they're well coached for the most part, and they're improving on a weekly basis, which maybe should have been expected with a brand new head coach, an entire new staff, and no training camp. But they are getting better and better. The Eagles can't seem to figure anything out right now. They're an absolute train wreck. Doug Peterson probably will be fired at the end of this season because either Carson Wentz gets traded or cut, or he gets fired because if those two can't get on the same page. The Cowboys are a mess. Washington football team. Alex Smith threw for 390 yards, but he threw 80 times. I don't think you're confident he can stay healthy the rest of the season with what we've seen from him. Yeah, the Giants are going to win the NFC East. They're going to get crushed in the first round of the playoffs, and I'm going to be okay with it. And I'm going to celebrate the fact that this is the worst division champ ever, and I'm going to do it tomorrow prematurely. They've already clinched the division in my mind.
All right, let's run through these teams here one by one. All right, Washington. I would like for Washington to sign Kaepernick. Let's bring him back because Alex Smith is not getting it done. They're working out the former Deshaun Kaiser. That's nothing. At least feel intriguing. I know Alex Smith is a great story, but you could do better than Alex Smith. Give me Kaepernick. Make your team at least a little bit interesting. Dallas is irrelevant. Don't even pay attention to the Cowboys the rest of the season. This is about the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles. So there was a point I heard that the Eagles, they won a Super Bowl and Doug Pearson gets a statue, Nick Foles gets a statue. I mean, if the Jets ever won a Super Bowl, whoever is on that team is getting a stat. I mean, they're getting immortalized. But ever since then, it's been you hear about the Eagles practices their practices are sloppy. They basically partied for a year straight after they won, and the curious case of Carson Wentz is starting to get more and more fascinating. That fact that he was this player who in 2017, 14-1 and got hurt, just obliterating the NFL. Have defenses caught up to Carson Wentz, or what is going on with that guy? That the fact that ever since they won that Super Bowl, they kind of even come close to touching that elite level they seem to be at.
Two things. I'll start with the Nick Foles thing, and we'll get to Carson Wentz. As we talked with the Mets, you can just get on a heater in life, and sometimes you really do just find gold or strike lightning in a bottle and ride it out as long as you can. And that's what happened with the Eagles and Nick Foles. I mean, they got the best Nick Foles possible for a 7-week span. And after that, he's been a fraction of the player since, and he looks god awful now in Chicago. He looked horrible in Jacksonville last season. That's not the player that led the Eagles to the Super. He outdueled Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, and I think that was just more of a, hey, we got nothing to lose. Let's see what happens. As you want to go real quick?
Yeah. So I actually thought about this the other day. The top five worst quarterbacks to ever win a Super Bowl.
If you say Eli Manning, I'm going to hang up right now.
Worst quarterback ever, Trent Dilfer.
Yep.
Number 2, Brad
Johnson.
Number 3, Nick Foles. Number
Joe
4,
Flacco's on the list.
Number 5, Eli Manning.
That's I'm so no. That just it validates your list. But the first 4, you're probably correct.
But Nick Foles, he looks so. Literally the worst game I've ever seen in quarterback. I mean, listen, I've watched the Jets. I've seen a lot of bad quarterback games. That Nick Foles performance, he didn't lead them to a single touchdown. They had the ball on the 45-yard line after a punt. The opponent's 45-yard line, and they couldn't even get a field goal. I mean, that is just an abomination of a performance. He can't move. As soon as he has forced to take a step to his left or his right, he's a lost puppy. I don't know how that dude ever had to outdo Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. That is a travesty. Tom Brady should be mad at himself for the rest of his life that he allowed Nick Foles to outduel him in the biggest game that Nick Foles will ever play.
No, I agree. Now, as far as Carson Wentz goes, and this ties into Lamar Jackson, this ties into Cam Newton to an extent, NFL defenses adapt. And it takes a little bit of time, but once they get a read on you, it changes. And we've seen it throughout the history of time with the Wildcat. It worked for a couple of games. NFL figured it out. Defenses caught up. We rarely see the Wildcat anymore. Back to 2012 with Robert Griffin III, the read option with the speed quarterback. That was a hot trend for a year in the NFL. Defenses figured it out. Now we see the read option. It's not dead, but it's very rarely seen. Last year with Lamar Jackson, they run this exotic smash mouth offense where the quarterback's running the ball, 12, 13 times a game. This season, the Ravens offense is nowhere to be found. Now, there are other factors. The offensive line isn't as good in Baltimore. RG3 got hurt. But it goes back to the same thing with Wentz. I think defense has just figured out, A, he's not good against pressure, and B, he's never going to just throw the ball away. So either you're going to get a sack or he's going to just chuck it up and you're going to intercept it. And there's one more thing. Turnover luck is real. And I don't have the numbers here, but I would bet you that he only threw, I think, 4 interceptions in 2014 before he got hurt. His touchdown interception ratio was wild. Frank, will you look that up real quick?
I'm looking up his stats.
I bet you.
His rookie year was like 2016 or whatever.
Yeah, and he had a good touchdown interception ratio. His second year when he was an MVP candidate when he got hurt. What was his touchdown interception?
2016 was a rookie year, 16 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. The Super Bowl year was 33-7.
So, yeah. So, obviously,
this year he has a career – he has 12 interceptions through 9 games. His career high before that was 14 in his rookie year. So, this is by far the worst season of his career.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to defenses knowing what he likes to do and taking that away. And then if you can't adapt and read the defense and go to your second read or go to your second option and do it quickly, you're going to get sacked. And then he makes the Daniel Jones interceptions where instead of just throwing the ball out of bounds, he tries to extend the play and make the heroic play. And more often than not, those are low-risk plays in the NFL. I'm sure he got away with a number of them in 2017 when he only threw 7 interceptions. Now the DBs just aren't dropping them, and it's made his interception numbers skyrocket. So I just think defenses have figured him out, and he hasn't adapted. The great quarterbacks, they come in, defenses adapt, and then they adapt to the adaptation. Carson Wentz has not adapted to the change in defense that he's seen over the last 2.5 seasons.
I think the same can be said for Lamar. I think the NFL has completely figured out Lamar Jackson, and he looked like a lost puppy as well against the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots stink. They have no talent. The fact that they're even 4-5 is shocking. And Lamar Jackson, in that rainstorm, just couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. He stinks. He just stinks. That's all I got to say about Lamar.
His receivers did drop a couple of pretty well thrown balls, but yeah, defenses adapt, and you can't do the same thing on a yearly basis. Even the best offenses in the league, they change. Look at Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. That offense is so innovative that you can't get a grasp on exactly what they want to do. And as soon as you do, Andy Reid is ready to change it up. That's what we saw against Buffalo when they ran for 250 yards in that game. And the next game, he throws for 5 touchdowns in the first quarter against the Jets. You can't get a read on what the Chiefs want to do. Teams know what the Eagles want to do, and they know exactly what Baltimore wants to do. So much so that Lamar Jackson said teams are calling out their plays when he talked to Rich Eisen a couple weeks ago. So I don't think either quarterback is necessarily done, but they have to figure out, how do I adapt and do what teams don't want me to do? And if you can't do that, then you have no future in this league.
Carson Wentz should be talented enough to be able to adjust and get better. Lamar's done. Lamar, what you saw from Lamar last year was apex Lamar. Will never be better than that, and because he's incapable of adjusting, and that's where I stand on Lamar Jackson. So Ravens are gonna have some stuff to figure out. As for the Patriots, they're 4-5. They won 2 in a row. They got the hopeless Texans this week. I mean, every week I look at the line for the Texans game, and I'm like, Deshaun Watson's incredible, but they continue to lose. 2 wins are over the Jaguars. So it looks like the Patriots are going to win again. And based on my luck, because I had under 9.5 wins, Patriots are going like 10-6, and they're going to make the playoffs. And Bill Belichick is just put him in the Hall of Fame now. I mean, this is ridiculous. Their roster is atrocious. He's throwing a freaking Jacoby Myers, and they're having Damian Harris is turning into like the greatest running back in the NFL this season, and they're unstoppable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, what they do on a yearly basis is crazy. Belichick's still the best coach in football, and it's hard to argue. Andy Reid has a claim to that throne, but he's not the same level as Belichick. I don't think they make the playoffs. There's just too many 6-3 teams ahead of them, and they have to go 6-1 down the stretch to even have a chance. Maybe 5-2 if everyone else loses, but I think there are 5 6-3 teams vying for those final 3 playoff spots. Frank, am I correct in that? I believe there's 5 for 3 spots.
Let me look at the standings real quick. So
I don't think they're jumping 2 teams that have 2-game leads on them already this late in the season.
So you know Kansas City's in, Pittsburgh's in. Let's see who else. All right.
Either the Bills or the Dolphins. Just put one in for.
So Steelers, Chiefs are locks. You have to think that the Bills and Dolphins are probably the 2 teams out of the AFC East. Looks like the Colts out of the South. So that's Steelers, Chiefs, Bills, Dolphins, Colts. And then it's a logjam of Raiders, Browns, Titans, Ravens, and Patriots. So yeah, Patriots got an uphill climb. So
there's too many good teams ahead of them, and they don't have the talent in my mind to make up those 2 games.
All right, so we got Steelers are locked in, Chiefs are locked in, Bills and Dolphins and Colts I would say are pretty safe bets to all make.
Hold up. Pick Dolphins or Bills real quick, just for the hypothetical. Doesn't matter. Let's just say the Bills are ahead right now. Are Bills in first place right now?
Yeah, I mean they played one more game.
Put the Bills in that spot just for hypothetical reasons. So we got the 4 division winners. We'll put the Colts in for the South.
So it's been Raiders, Ravens, Browns, Titans, Patriots,
and Dolphins.
And Dolphins to be getting in, so they're 1.
So yeah,
and then after that, I think the Raiders are going to get exposed this week. I actually have a sizable wager on the Chiefs. And then after that, I mean, I'll never trust Baker Mayfield.
But do you trust this iteration? I mean, I don't trust Cam Newton either. We've seen nothing out of Cam Newton that makes me say this offense can actually really win games. They needed Jacoby Myers to throw a touchdown pass to Rex Burkhead to beat the Ravens.
I mean, I guess I have to analyze each team's schedule one by one. I think if winner of Titans Ravens will be that last spot. Winner of Titans Ravens, that's how the playoff picture will be decided in the AFC East. In the AFC. That winner of that game gets in. Last thing before we go, Twitter on the mobile device is basically copying the same look as Facebook and Instagram. And I love Twitter. It's easily my favorite social media platform, despite all the hate it gets. But I hate how they're starting to mimic Facebook and Instagram, 2 platforms that I'm not very active on, that I do not really enjoy too much. And I hate the stories. I don't know why they're doing it. Let Twitter be. The only issue with Twitter is that you have all these people who feel so comfortable speaking their minds on every subject. That's the issue with Twitter. It wasn't the fact that you didn't have stories on it. I don't understand the fascination with stories. I'll never understand it. I know you know someone at Twitter. Get them on the line for me. Let me speak to them and handle this the way it should be handled. Thank you.
All right. So my buddy from high school, Ryan Huff, works at Twitter. And I texted him yesterday and I said, dude, Fleets, are you kidding me? Stupid. And he laughed. He goes, it's obviously not my decision, but can I tell you the thought process behind it? I said, please, I would love to know. He said, people don't feel comfortable, according to their research, people don't feel comfortable tweeting stuff because people can answer in a public way. So this is their version of allowing people to say something and then not be ridiculed online for it. And he said the number of people who go on Twitter who don't post because of that fear led them to add this feature. And I once again said, that's stupid.
You just got me so wild up. If you don't want to say something, don't say it. Keep your mouth shut. This Twitter, this isn't some, wimp society. If you got something to say it. Don't hide behind your little wall because I don't click on that crap. Put your name to it. I can't handle this anymore.
Say it with your chest, Frankel. Say it with your chest, boy.
That's all I gotta say about that. I can't say those stupid stories. I will never click on them. Stop wasting my time with them. Instagram, I don't click on those ever, and I never will. You're out of your mind. You're ruining social media for everybody.